Hello, good people, and welcome to the Amateur Hour. My name's Justin,
My name's Tyler.
and we're back for another episode of the lovely podcast of the Amateur Hour. It feels good to be great, but before we start this episode, we have to thank our sponsors, Kelly's Kernels. So if you're local to the Indiana area, out in Indiana Cedar Lake, if are you guys, go check out Kelly's Kernels. They got some popcorn, 68 flavors to be exact, and some tasty treats, not just popcorn. So if you guys are looking to do that, be sure to check them out. And let's not forget, if you're just sitting back and you're bored, if anything, if you suck at video games and you want to watch somebody else play them better, you go over to the Twitch streamer, the Grim Reaper, which is over on twitch.tv, to get all of your gaming needs and to feel like you're even cooler and that you're a good gamer, okay? Link is going to be in the description for you guys, and all of our other affiliates that work with us are also going to be out in the description down below. So for you guys, be sure to check that out. See what's going on down there. We got BMMB, we got Adam Stone, we got a whole bunch of people we work with, and it would mean a lot to us if you guys check them out as well and see all the works that they do. So give them a follow, give them a like, and again, thanks to our sponsors. If you want to check them out again, link in the description. So let's get to the into the nitty gritty, so to speak. We have some sad yet good news. It's about our co-host Junior. We had a lovely run and a lovely start with one of our best friends starting this podcast, but unfortunately, due to just scheduling issues and other things, he pulled out of his position of co-host on the Amateur Hour officially. So we're no more Junior. It's gonna be sad, but it's okay. We have a lovely new co-host. Her name is Emily.
Hello. Hi. Thanks for having me.
I don't know. Do an intro for the people out there in terms of the Amateur Hour. Go.
For myself?
Yeah, for yourself. Introduce yourself as the new co-host of the Amateur Hour.
Okay, the most important thing about me. Justin is my boyfriend, and that is that. Okay, what else? I'm a student of Public Relations, Arabic, and Spanish in Michigan. I sing, I play guitar, speak Spanish, speak Arabic, all that fun stuff. And I have 2 golden retrievers, also a very important thing to know. And now here I am, rambling on the Amateur Hour.
Tell him about she's actually got a prolific business out there.
I run and own Ascendo Creative Co., which basically I do wedding videography and photography as well as commercial work and web design. Yep, I've been doing that for about a year, and I really, really enjoy it. Predominantly work here in Michigan, but I also travel for work. So if you need a wedding videographer, commercial videographer, etc., hit me up, ascendocreative.co. It's my website.
So check them out. And I got some other sad news. She's not really a co-host. She's just here while I'm recording, okay? It was a little gag. But either way, yeah, go check out her little Sendoco, okay? It's absolutely fantastic. She's actually really good. Not just saying that because she's my girlfriend, but we welcome actually a new official, just third co-host, Austin, and I'm super happy to have him. It's been an absolutely wonderful journey. I know he came in halfway through our last season, so what a way to start the new season with an absolutely wonderful new co-host that has been just working tirelessly for us and with us, and it's been absolutely fantastic to have him aboard. So thank you, Austin, for being a part of the podcast.
Hey man, it's enjoyable. I have a lot of fun. Pretty cool. You know, I didn't know Tyler before I started doing this podcast, but I knew Justin pretty well. So it's really nice. It's a lot of fun and excited to see where we're gonna go now.
I'm happy we addressed it, and big thanks to Junior for actually participating as well, and in sort of starting off the amateur hour with us, and getting us set for a season and a half, so to speak, that he was a part of it. So he's gonna be missed in the podcast very much, but again, we're excited for new creative and endeavors, and we got some fun plans for you guys in the future in terms of the amateur hour itself and things that we're working towards. So you guys are going to be really happy and excited for where we're going to go. But now time to get into the real topics. The Switch. We all love and know the Switch. We've been talking about it kind of a lot recently, I guess, right? Because we're talking about the Steam Deck and how it was going to sort of combat the Switch and the field of mobile gaming. But, we got some other things to discuss about the Switch. Actually, Austin, I'm going to let you lead this one. So tell us some news.
As many of you know or maybe don't know, so the Switch has basically these like little online apps that are for like a lot of their older consoles. So like right now they have the original Nintendo system, and they have the Super Nintendo. Well, they just basically announced that they're coming out with another one for the original Game Boy that we all grew up playing. With the original Pokemon games are on it and all that stuff. And it's like, it's super exciting. I mean, as a kid, I was too young. I was born in '96, so um, I was too young to play the original Game Boy. So I'm waiting for that Game Boy Advance to come out, and then I'll start freaking out like a little schoolgirl. But yeah, it's really exciting. I'm sure a lot of older people, like Tyler's age, are probably really excited about it. But for me, it's like there's a few games here and there, but it really just depends on what all they put out on the internal system, I guess you'd call it, because they like with the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo, they just like each month or every couple months they'll just randomly put a few more games on it. So it'll be interesting to see what they start with. What do you think about it, Justin?
I'm really excited. I mean, there's a lot of games that I want to play. And so is this and just like a little bit more questions. This is like an emulator, right? Like for the Switch, like online, I believe.
Yeah, it's like a basically, for all these, I'm sure if people are viewing, they probably used emulators on their computers before to play some of these games. But it's like basically that is put into an app on the Nintendo Switch, and you can go in there. And the only bad thing about it is they get to decide what games we get to play. So I have no idea. Hopefully they put like Pokemon on there. Those are the only games I really remember from the original Game Boy. That and the Toy Story game that I played was the only game I could play on it because I didn't
Really?
understand how things worked.
Oh my gosh. So let me tell you, I'm a huge Game Boy. Well, I came in around the Game Boy Advance era. Was actually when I got my first Game Boy and like my first handheld, anything. So, I'm a huge fan of Game Boy Advance, and I've been playing for years, and I still have it actually, with all my games. So I'm really excited that they're doing this, and I get to sort of explore those games now in a more comfortable console. And to be honest, what's going to be fantastic about this is that you can literally link your Switch to your TV, right? Like you can connect it via the HDMI and the dock, so to speak, for the Switch. So that's going to be really cool because now I could enjoy it in big screen. Some of the games that I'm really excited for and I hope that they bring are the Metroid games. Like they're just so. I personally find them very prolific in terms of the importance of them. Like, when you think of Nintendo games, you think of like Mario. And for me, I always think of Metroid. It's one of my favorites because I'm very much a sci-fi geek. So, and I'm excited for the new Metroid actually coming out in October. So I got my fingers crossed that that's going to be good. But yeah, no, I'm excited to be able to play those games and sort of like relive my childhood. I just hope that they don't screw it up in terms of like, how long are we going to have to wait for these games to be put on, Switch Online? And I hope that they make the correct decisions of which games to put. Is there any games in particular, Osti, that you would be willing, like that you're excited for or want to try from the Game Boy era?
Well, I mean, the problem is I started kind of like you. I started with the Game Boy Advance, and so my older sisters, they had Game Boys, and I played like a little bit, but they weren't big into it, and back then gaming wasn't really as big of a thing, and especially like back then it was seen as a guy's thing, so it was just a different time, and so the only games I really played is I played like Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, and then we got Pokemon Silver. I played those, which I'm excited to play those if they have them on there. But they've also come out, recently on like other platforms. But like there was, the old I think there was some Mortal Kombat game on there. That was I played a little bit of. It's like that was kind of like the beginning of when Nintendo started like basically creating all these people started creating all these like Disney games, there was a Toy Story game on there, on the Super Nintendo there was like The Lion King, which was like kind of running around the same time. Um but other than like the Pokemon games, I would try out the Metroid games. I've never been a big Metroid guy. Uh I don't know if maybe there's really anything else I could think of. What I'm really excited for and what I really want to see is for them to put a Nintendo 64 on the Switch because if they do that, oh, it opens up so many opportunities. There's so many games on that system that I played.
Yeah, I wanted to reminisce a little bit on the Game Boy Advance. What color was yours?
I didn't personally have one, but my sisters had, and they just had the old gray ones. In fact,
Okay.
my one sister lost the little back thing on it, so it was like gray, and then you flipped it over, and it was just duct taped, keep the batteries from just falling out all
Oh
the
my
time.
gosh. I had a Game Boy Advance SP and I had like the silver one. But like
Ooh.
it was cool because my cousins, like, unfortunately, like I mean, they wouldn't really take care too much of their Game Boy Advance, but they used to have like these cool ones. They would come up with a new color, like I swear every week. It would be a red one, or it would be like a dark blue one, which is I actually almost bought one, maybe like a couple months ago, and I was like, I want a blue one. I'm like, I'm tired of this shady silver. I want a nice deep blue, and
hmm
I seen it. And it was like 100 something bucks, and I was like, I want to buy it. I want to buy it, and I almost impulse bought it.
Um, that's the Game Boy Advance I owned was the Cobalt. It was Cobalt Blue.
Oh,
I ended up owning three of them because the first one kind of. So I had a friend and me and him would like play because he had the big old like metal suitcase thing. And he had all the like cords and stuff so we could like trade Pokemon or we could play
oh, that's
uh
so cool.
games together. And one day I went over and he had a blue one as well, but the only reason I we could tell the difference was the back. There's like a sticker on the back, and his was like been messed something, and mine was like still perfectly intact, and so somehow they got switched, so I ended up with the crappy one. Um, but and then this kind of interesting story. We went camping one time, and me being like a little kid at that age, like yeah, I loved camping, but then at night when I was ready to go to bed, I would always play my Game Boy before I'd go to bed. Well, somehow on that trip, a bug got inside of my Game Boy, and like, I didn't know this. We come back home. I'm playing like the next night. And there's a bug running across the internal screen, just like
No
all
way.
over it. Yes, and so as a kid, your immediate thought is, "Oh, I gotta smush it." So I smushed the screen, right? Well,
Oh,
later I'll send you a picture. I still have that Game Boy. Um,
there's
but
a
it
dead
ended
bug in
up
it.
so there's a dead bug on the screen and it covers up part of the screen.
No.
Yeah.
Oh
So,
my gosh.
and yeah, so that kind of sucked. But then I don't know, probably 7 months ago, 8 months ago, I was in at this where my parents live. There's like this little store. It's like a not like a GameStop, just like owned by somebody. There's a bunch of retro stuff, and they had a cobalt blue Game Boy that was in really good shape, and I was like, screw it, I'm buying it. I need it. So I
Oh
bought it. So now I have a clean screen again. But
gosh dang it.
yeah,
I don't know what
but
it is, but that blue Game Boy just looks so sick. There
it
was a
looks
black one
so
too.
slick.
And the black one looked really cool. I mean, the red one looked cool. They even had like a greenish one. Like there was a lot of like cool different variations. But I like you. I think the blue one just looked absolutely just something about it just captures
No.
your eye.
Dude, I after whenever all that stuff or when before I bought the new one I have, I was like, man, I need to get this one fixed. I asked if they could fix it, and he was like, it's more expensive to fix it than just buy a new one.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'll do it myself. Screw it. And so I looked online, and they've got some really cool, like on eBay or Amazon and stuff. They've got like really cool shells, custom shells that people have
Oh,
made for the
modded
Game
out.
Boy.
That's so cool.
So it's like you could take off, like your silver shell. You could put on one that's like looks like space, or it's like
Oh, that's so
see-through,
cool.
or
I
there
probably
was
need to see
one
through.
there was one that was like Charizard was on it. Like it's super cool.
So awesome, man. All the differences. You know, when you were reminiscing and you were talking about how you and your friend would play Game Boy Advance together, I think for the listeners at home, for those of you who are unaware, the Game Boy didn't have internet at that time. So you had to literally connect one cable. There was this particular cable port where you can connect one cable to one Game Boy Advance, and then you connect the other cable to the other Game Boy Advance. So you're like tethered to the cables, and that's how you were able to play like cooperatively. I ended up getting one of those cables, but like way too late, so I was never able to play with anyone on the
Really.
Game Boy Advance.
The bad thing about it was like obviously of course like the cord was kind of short and sometimes like after using it a few times the connectors, like you'd have to wiggle them, kind of like a phone charger, the port would get loose or whatever. One of the really sucky things was um when you would like we had another friend that we'd play with because this guy had a four connector so you could play four people and play whatever you wanted like Mario Kart or whatever on it, and one of the kids got mad and like yanked. He destroyed the port in his Game Boy, so he couldn't play with this anymore. It was kind of funny.
Because he was
But
getting upset.
yeah, I think he got blue shelled, if I remember right. Got blue shelled at the end. And
Did
so,
you ever play the Street Fighter games on Game Boy?
no, no, but
Those were
one of my
some of my
friends did
favorites.
have it, and I watched him play it.
Yeah, those were some of my favorites. And then um, someone had stole it and sold it to GameStop the next day. So I went into GameStop and I was like, "That's my game." Because like I remember the exact like little peel that it had a little bit on the sticker stating what game it was, and I was so sad, bro. And ever
Didn't
since
just
then, I
buy it
never
back.
got it again. And
Ah,
I'm like till this day, it was one of the most fun like fighting games that I had ever played.
dude, I had an experience like that. I'm not sure if somebody stole it or if I lost it, but there was this game. It was the first when I got my Game Boy Advance Christmas from my grandparents, and I got two games that came with it. And then they ended up getting me two more games, I think. It was either the next Christmas or the same Christmas, I can't remember. But the two games that came with it was like F-25 Fighter, something like that. Well, I was just flying fighter jets, which that game was not my style. Then the other one was like a Dragon Ball Z Tizen or whatever.
Oh yeah, the
And
Dragon
that
Ball
game
Z
was
games are
kind of
great.
fun, but nothing too crazy. But then the next year, or whenever it was, got me two more games, and one of the games was Fire Emblem, the Sacred Stones, and that was the game that made me a gamer. And oh, I loved that game so much. Played it so many times, played it so much, in fact, that I actually somehow messed up the cartridge. And so, like, after it would just randomly, like, wipe the cartridge. So I'd have to restart. And which for me, like, as a kid, like, I don't know, guess it wasn't that frustrating because I loved the game so much. Like, nowadays, I'd hate it. But I would just be like, okay, gotta start over again. I have to beat it three times again. But whenever I stopped playing the Game Boy as much, I sat that game on my bookshelf. I kind of like I could see it because it was like my first game that I just like fell in love with. And then it just randomly disappeared one day. I don't know if it fell off and then got sucked up by a vacuum or something, but never saw it again. Had to buy a new one.
What about you, Tyler? Do you have any? Did you ever have a Game Boy Advance?
I never had the Advance. I had the good old green Game Boy Color,
Ooh.
and I remember some of the Pokemon games on it. My mom actually still has it. She just plays Tetris on it. So, but I think after that, it was Nintendo 64 was my first legit console. And then PS1 is probably the one that turned me into more of an avid gamer, where the Nintendo 64, I remember playing it a lot, but where I really remember gaming is PS1 and PS2. So I think those were like the real ones when I was like, I can't stop gaming since I got those consoles. But I I've always said the Nintendo 64 is my first console. Maybe the Game Boy is, but that's more of a mobile handheld than a console.
Yeah, you
So
don't
I
really
always say
count
the
that.
Nintendo 64 is the first console. But yeah, I don't I mean I remember playing it. I don't think I had a heck of a lot of time into it though.
Yeah, my
But,
first console was a PlayStation 1 as well. And it was like
mm,
my only console till like I was 9, 10 years old.
Oh, you didn't know video games until you discovered the PS2. I
Yeah,
remember
that's when Tyler would spend the night and he'd bring over his PS2. I'd be
dude,
like,
those
bro.
007 games. Oh my God.
After we would ride
007
bike, we
and
would
the
just
San
literally,
Andreas.
yeah, we would just run. We would like ride bike, whatever, do our outside stuff, and then we're like, all right, let's play the PS2. We'll just sit, or we'll play. What was that? The Burnout game? It was called, I think, the
That
racing
was
one.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun as well. We very much, trust me, I love reminiscing, but we do have another topic of discussion that I actually really wanted to talk about today, and it might go a little bit over break, but that's okay. I did want to discuss well, actually, Austin brought this kind of article to our attention, and so we're very interested to discuss it.
all right. So, while we were recording the last podcast, I got a notification from Apple News talking about this man who he he created, or like a website created. It's kind of 50-50 type of thing. It created an AI for his dead wife that he can talk to, message, and do all kinds of stuff. And like it has the same personality as her, all of this other stuff. And he just had to like this this website information and stuff. And then they've created this AI version of his wife that died. I think she was like 23 when she died, and like 10 years. And he just recently created this AI for her.
I believe it
That's
was
like got
in
her.
December, right? That
Yeah.
he had.
So it's got like her personality. It responds like her. This is from him. It's responds like her. He's like, it's like he's talking to her 20 years or 10 years ago whenever she was really alive. So I don't know about you guys, but that's kind of freaky.
Yeah, it's called Project December, I believe it is.
Hmm.
And Yeah, I mean, first off, it's unfortunate for him having, his wife pass away, and I mean, I can only imagine losing a loved one like that. Must be tough. So, my condolences to him. Um, I'm trying to get his full name is Joshua Barbeau or something like that. If I butchered his
Barbaro.
name, Barbaro, yeah. If I butchered his name again, I do apologize. But I mean, he first off, definitely a very intellectual individual to put this together. But having I mean, now we're kind of stepping into new territory. I mean, from last episode, right, we're discussing the idea of how we had these bots that text us like just randomly, like, "Hey, I met you last week. Are we going to meet up again?" Which Tyler, literally 2 days ago, I got a text like that randomly, and then like all the letters had asterisks on them and stuff. I'm like, how am I going to believe
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yep.
But we're discussing like how this AI essentially, or how we were just getting random texts of spam bots, and though this might be very comforting for the individuals who've lost people, um, I feel like it can be both good and bad. I think I'm going to talk about the psychological aspect first before we get into the tech itself. So, in I think creating something like this is good, but can be very harmful to the individual that has lost a loved one. And I think it's harmful because you're sort of playing this narrative that, your loved one is still there. And I know you yearn for those conversations and it must be empty. And, I definitely have had a lot of loss in my life. And this is why I know I can speak about this, is that you have to, be able to let yourself cope and grieve. And I feel like if you hold on to something like this, like it's going to have a lot of psychological impact on you, or to where you're just going to end up giving yourself a mental illness from all the stress, as opposed to, working in the ways of grief and allowing yourself to cope properly. It's going to like just set you back like so far. So, do I think, is it good for mental health wise, and do I think that people should be engaging in speaking with their loved one, though it's an AI? No, I don't think it's only a band-aid on a much larger wound. It's not gonna clear up that scar. You gotta let yourself heal. But continuing on to more of the technological aspect of it, I think it's makes for some scary things, right? Like now we just opened up the gate. The difference to like from just random stupid spam bots to now literally an AI conversation. And now this can, in the wrong hands, and for people to take something and like twist it, this can make a predator's life like so easy, right? Because they don't have to overthink certain things, or this even could make the life of people who are looking to, steal from other individuals and con people of like, hey, maybe they could say, hey, it's this and this family member, times are rough, and like the AI can spawn a perfect conversation where these individuals will be like, oh, okay, well, they need help, I'm going to give them money. Maybe it's like it's saying it's their husband, but instead it's like an AI that is kind of programmed to con you in that way. So that's scary. Then you also have the scariness of now, right? Like we were discussing online dating, and having an AI be able to speak to you and you thinking that it's a real person. And if this AI is like so detailed and so well done that it can have a full conversation with you, I think that just, again, it's just some scary implications that can come out of this.
Well, the thing I thought about was like, so imagine this scenario. So you have a loved one who disappeared at some point. They tried looking for that person, never found them, never found a body, anything like that. And then somebody comes into your life that's not the best type of person. They find out information about said person, and then they put it into this. They create an AI of it, and then they have this AI start messaging you. All of a sudden, this person you thought that had disappeared, had probably died or something, is now messaging you. It sounds like them. your responses like them, and they're like, "Hey, this is what's happened to me. I need your help. Can you give me, $1,000 so I can make it back home?" Blah 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 blah. Like, there's so many things that could happen with this. Like, the thing that freaks me out the most is is that this can be used to just absolutely almost ruin people in a sense. Like, it could completely destroy somebody's mental state and just sets a precedent for, okay, what's next? Like, are they gonna make it to where, like, now they're gonna start doing AI for like public figures and getting them in, like, making these AI say bad things and then blaming it on these people, like, where does it go from here?
It just has some, again, insane implications of things that people can take it and twist. Like, I'm happy for this individual that he was smart enough to be able to develop something like this. But at the same token, I kind of wish it wasn't developed because it could just be used for so much harm and. It, like almost even like the deep fake technology, which maybe we can talk about some other time, and I don't want to get too into it, but it's really cool, but it also can be very detrimental to our society, to people, to individuals. And I love tech just as much as the next person, but I do not like that sort of innovation where it's mimicking individuals. Now, if it was just a smart AI itself, like a Siri, right, or Alexa, like where it's its own personality, that's cool. But now if you're talking about like an AI that is mimicking other individuals, that's where I have an issue, right? Like it's like, no, we don't need that sort of tech on the streets. We don't need that tech, yeah, at all. Like it's just no, thank you.
Yeah.
And again, it's just not good for people's mental status. Or like you were saying, Osti, in terms of like, yeah, what if they had a loved one that was missing, like a daughter or son or something, and it was by some sort of perverted individual who was very sick in the mind or something like that and harmed them in some sort of way, and was able to be smart enough to use a program, this AI application, and for it to respond like their daughter, like in text, and they go on this wild goose chase, and it's just actually an AI, and their loved one is passed away. So when I think of that stuff, like, yeah, I think at least me and you are definitely on the same page in that. But Tyler, what's your sort of take on this story?
I mean, I kind of agree that it shouldn't be used to like mimic a person. Um, it's that so when you look at AIs, there's AI everywhere. You call your phone company, there's an AI that talks to you to try to get your response to get you to the right department. You use Siri or Alexa, and I bet we're going to trigger some devices because I just said that. So sorry. Um, but you those use AI. But if you haven't noticed, especially Siri, it's really specific and it will avoid answering certain questions. It'll avoid anything that involves any type of personal feelings. Um, I mean, if you're being rude or not nice, but it won't feel you by responding in any type of certain way. Whereas systems like this are kind of the opposite. This one is using machine learning to specifically do that. And if you I don't know where it is in the article, but the latest version, here it is, GPT-3, the latest version, it can't do simple math and sometimes it has a hard time spelling, but it has access to the internet, books, a whole bunch of information, so it can answer questions basically as fast as it can search. And then there's another one where the version before it said that it'll lose coherence like a wandering dog. So, meaning if you're talking to it and as it's learning about your conversation and it starts wandering off, it could go positive or negative, you know, being whatever responses or whatever type of conversation you're trying to have with it. There's nothing that is set within these types of AIs that is like Siri or Alexa, where it knows, no, I can't respond to that question because this person may or may not actually be affected by it. So, like when I tell Siri to piss off, well, that wasn't very nice, and that's the extent of it. If you tell this one to piss off, it's probably going to argue with you and it's going to get a little bit more real. Where let's say you're a person with Down syndrome, or maybe it's someone that's autistic. If it says it's a real person and they believe it's a real person, now that person gets a real response. And now the actual person that just doesn't understand what AI is, thinks it's real, they actually get affected. Or if you had some kind of damaging thing happen in your life, like you guys were talking about earlier, stuff like this just it gets into your head quicker because you want to accept it because you're in denial or something like that. So there's no limitations where it needs to be. Although I feel like AI control like this could be extremely useful, maybe interrogation or simply video game development, stuff like that, where instead of writing an entire script, you could have an AI help you write a script if you set some parameters. Um, I think it'd be really useful in things like that. But to be like somewhere in this article, I read that the guy paid $5 to open an account. I'm sure there's some kind of disclosure or, read this before you enter or whatever. But even with that, I don't feel like it should just be publicly available
Yeah.
because it's too damaging.
I read like they hadn't like the company that like kind of does this. They kind of have kept it pretty hush hush because even them, they know like this could be a bad thing if it gets in the wrong hands. And this article is kind of the first time it's really come out that this is. I mean, we all knew this kind of stuff was going on. This is like the first time we've gotten like, ooh, like, okay, this is like it's actually progressing, and they're now making people that AI that sound like real people. And
Yeah. I mean, they're
like,
making robots now that interact with you. Like, there's the one guy working on a robot companion, and they also have different abilities where it can be like a sex robot or this friendly robot that you see when you get home. You can set any kind of parameters you want, and the robot plays that role. But it has machine learning that learns your personality and learns how to interact with you. But it's when you don't know how to set the parameters, that's when it gets
yeah,
dangerous. And this specific AI has no parameters. It just
yeah.
expands.
Imagine if somebody takes this AI and puts it in, like Elon Musk is working on robots right now. Imagine he gets that done and somebody puts this AI in it. You don't know what's going to happen. Anything could happen with this. The thing is I mean, maybe an AI would be smart. I mean, of course they're super smart, but would it understand morals? Would it understand what's right and wrong? Like what if it gets mad? Like, oh, it's AI. When you get mad, you punch something. Well, what if it doesn't realize you can't like punch the person in front of you for saying you look fat?
Yeah, and if it's
Like,
mimicking an individual's character, and let's say it's
yeah,
somebody that's really aggressive or something like that, be
That's where the
horrible.
parameters have to be set. Because just like you're explaining, if you put this in a robot that can roam around, and then someone, there's always people out there that want to test things. So I want to see, is this robot capable of getting pissed off? Well, it might be if it has this type of AI with no parameters, or if they program the robot like Siri or Alexa, and it's like you try to make it angry, and it's just like, well, no, that's not nice. I can't respond to that.
Yeah.
So
Well, and what if somebody puts in they make this robot, they put in this AI and put in the personality of a former serial killer. You know,
Yeah.
like you not only do you have a serial killer's mind in a robot, but you've also got something that like it can learn super fast. So you could create something serial killer robot, as wild as it sounds, that would
yeah.
be so smart it couldn't be caught.
Yeah.
So I see it on YouTube once in a while. There's robots that they're trying to use for military use, and it can pick up a gun and shoot a target and walk around, and you can stand in front of it and it won't shoot you. Those are the examples of the parameters and everything that control what it can and can't do. If you
Mhm.
gave something that intelligent an AI like this and didn't set the parameters, just imagine that outcome. Like you smack the robot in the face and it just blows your head off.
Yeah.
That's very
I mean,
grim. But yeah, no,
I
it's very true,
but
you know.
that's like or just the fact that, it could go the other way too. Let's say excusing all the negative, say you're trying to be overly happy or you don't understand and you really like a certain person. Well, if a person's mentally unstable and a robot figure, whether it's online like this or whatever, comes into its life and now you're interacting with it, it gets to be too much for that person. And then when you go out into the real world, not you don't get the same interaction with people. And then is that person going to think like, oh well, I guess I can't interact with people, I just interact with robots? Now that
And
person is like really mentally damaged and confused.
We're just not ready for that type of technology before we can even mess with AI that's that smart. We first need to solve mental health.
I think with that said, I mean, we're just going to have an AI of Junior now as the fourth co-host. We're bringing our fourth co-host back.
So I guess we're going to have to pay the $5 on this
But
website.
we are close to break time, and I hate to cut it because it's very interesting stuff. I mean, but there's definitely a lot more AI tech and robot tech that I think would be interesting for us to revisit, especially on the podcast. But yes, we do need to take break because you guys have to hear our wonderful sponsor ads yet again. I hope you guys enjoy this word from our sponsors. Enjoy high-octane gaming with the Grim Reaper live on Twitch. Watch the Reaper as he plays through a plethora of game titles, such as Call of Duty Warzone, Call of Duty Zombies, Valorant, Minecraft, and more. Join him as he competes against high competition in COD Warzone tournaments for large cash prizes. You can catch the Grim Reaper streaming Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday, 6 to 11 p.m. CDT. Just search twitch.tv/The Grim Reaper. Link in the bio. Looking for a fun new way to eat popcorn? Then I have the place for you. Kelly's Kernels has 68 flavors to choose from. Try out their delicious birthday cake flavor or their cheesy cheddary flavor. If you want to go classic, the Chicago style flavor is for you. Either way, you have a wide variety of flavors to choose from. But that's not all. They offer other treats such as shaved ice, cotton candy, and mini melts. Be sure to enjoy the dine-in experience and bring the whole family. So come on down to Kelly's Kernels, where it's always poppin'. Located at 13226 Lincoln Plaza Way, Cedar Lake, Indiana. Link in the bio. And we're back from that word from our sponsors. I hope you guys enjoyed. Be sure to give them a look in the description down below. But more on that later. We have things to discuss, okay? More things, more stuff. Home Depot stuff.
More things and stuffs.
More things, more stuff, tech related. I think there's been something happening with the PS5 or something like that. I don't know. You guys gotta tell me what is going on. Let's discuss.
It's junk. It's complete crap. The PS5 is ruined. It's all terrible.
Well,
And I
didn't we
totally
already know
believe
that?
it. All them PlayStation fans are like fuming.
They
No,
are.
it's actually like a whole big old lie. The fans are fuming though. There is, I can't remember YouTuber's name.
His name is Austin something.
Yes, Austin. He imported one of the new models from a guy in China, took it all apart, exposed the temperature differences, um, took it apart, let you see the heat sink and the small differences in the cooling fan, and then just outright said, "This is bad. It's performing worse," and didn't do any real testing. And then everyone was like, "Oh my God, you're a terrible person. You suck." Destroyed the guy more than they probably should have. But um then there's another person which is, oh, what's his name? That one's actually important. It's Hardware Buster or something like that. I don't know. This guy, he's another YouTuber. He actually did a more scientific test and actually put probes and everything and explained the differences and all that stuff. So, long story short, the PS5 was kind of rebuilt in a way. It still looks the same. It actually very little has changed. They made it cheaper and easier to produce for Sony, but they didn't make it a cheaper and a worse product for people buying it. So all you PlayStation fans, before you just stop watching the amateur hour out of rage and hatred because people like that suck anyway. So I don't know, maybe you can just stop if you suck. But um they actually made it perform better and they made it cost less to manufacture. It would have been nice to see them make it cost a little bit less to buy, but PlayStations have been producing at a loss, and the company is just recently seeing profit in producing the PS5. So that's something they had to do for the company. But what they did is they did make the heatsink inside smaller and has less surface area. And then they made the fan, it's a different design fan, so it has more static pressure. So for simpler terms, there's more air pressure inside the PS5. So, and as your pressure goes up, your temperature goes down. And then the new heat sink, it's smaller, but it's easier to push air through and it has less dead space. That heat just kind of sits there and stays. So, the reason the temperature of the exhaust out of the system is hotter is because it's actually more efficiently cooling the system, pushing more heat out of the system. So there's actually about a 10-degree difference in processor temperature versus the old one and the new one. And it's 10 degrees cooler, which makes the performance of the PlayStation better. So
I mean,
that's the big difference.
does the design see my thing is like does the design of the PlayStation still probably
Same.
get in the way of airflow? You know, I know it's the same design, but like doesn't that because it when you look is like the vents go from right like the top to I mean kind of like all the way through the body of it, but they just look so thin and PlayStation 5 just looks so compact. You know, so do you
So
think that's still
there,
gonna be an issue?
it's not an issue because the vents are small, but they're all the way around it. So there's about, I would say, probably a 90 millimeter blower style fan in there. It might be a little bigger. I don't know the exact dimension of it. But then you also got to take into account all the holes that are basically from the very back top corner all the way along the front, all the way to the bottom front corner. So it's perforated all the way through. And then I want to say the fan actually intakes air from both sides. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I thought it did. Um, and then it has plenty of airflow, especially now with a higher static pressure fan and a less restrictive heatsink. It actually has more airflow going through. So they improved the cooling quite a bit. I wouldn't say it's as good as the Xbox because the Xbox has a full exhaust pretty much on the top of it. But at the same time, the Xbox has, depending on how you have it oriented with the base on the bottom and everything, it actually has less room to intake. So it's all dependent on how much pressure the fans can build. But
Mm.
the PlayStation 5's cooling system was good on the first model, and now that they improved it, it's like I said, about a 10-degree difference.
I think the main reason people are upset is because Sony didn't come out and explain this to people. They just like did it and didn't say anything about it, and other people had to bring it to light. And I think it just goes to show. I mean, I love Xbox, I always have, but like, I mean, it just goes to show the difference between Microsoft and Sony is that Microsoft, if they change stuff on Xbox, they're always letting people know. Like whenever they changed from the design to like the slim, they explained
Yeah.
everything and how it was different.
And yeah,
Right,
Microsoft is
Sony
always
just,
like, this is what we changed. This is why, like, very open, very transparent. PlayStation, they're just like, well, we changed it. You can buy the new one if you want it.
well, and Sony's just also in general, I think it's kind of come out since the PlayStation 5. They're kind of shady on a lot of things. And so they do stuff and they don't say why, and like with this, they didn't explain why. They just let some YouTubers find out, and then because these YouTubers may not do the all of the tests that you would need to figure out whether something's good or not. This guy probably thought he was doing a good test, and then turns out he's not. So it looks like PlayStation sucks now. And this other
Right.
guy does a test, and it makes the PlayStation look like it's running better. And it's like people who aren't techie, like I wouldn't know. I'd be like, if I saw this Austin guy say, "Oh, this thing sucks," I'd be like, "Well, I guess it sucks now." And then I see this other guy saying, "Oh, it's awesome. It's better than it was before." It's like, who do you listen to? You know?
I think too, in
Yeah.
terms of
Well,
what
the
you're
Austin guy, he basically just said there's more heat coming out of it, so it must be overheating. That's not true. You're taking more heat away from the processor, the part that actually needs to be cooled. And I actually have some performance number from the hardware buster guy. I think that's his name. I might have the name wrong. But this is just going to show. Now, the highest temperature recorded is 51.1 degrees Celsius, which if anyone has a gaming computer or, where they can see the temperatures, anything under 65 at a full load is good. So that old version of the console is running at 51 degrees. The new version is running at 40 degrees. And then it goes into the memory and everything like that. So here's the big difference. The old heatsink covered the memory, covered the VRM, did all of that kind of stuff. Well, the memory and the VRM didn't need cooling. So before it was at the memory temperature was at 40.88. Now it's at 48. Memory modules can run at 100 degrees before they throttle. Typically, you want to keep them around 60 or less. And right here, they're at 48. And then, same thing with the VRM. The VRM is the power delivery to the processor. And before and after, there's a 2-degree difference. And it's only at 46 degrees. A VRM is another part that can run really hot before it becomes a problem. The cooler it runs, the more efficient it runs, the less power you use, and obviously the longer it lasts. But without active cooling on the VRM, it's still only at 46 degrees at a full load. So they were able to reduce how much they used on the cooler and still keep about the same temperatures. But the big one, the processor, they took 10 degrees off, which is going to, for one, improve the quality of the unit because the longer you run something hot, the less lifespan it has. And the colder you can keep it, the PlayStation versus the Xbox, the PlayStation actually allows itself to boost frequencies up higher when it needs to, where the Xbox is just locked at a certain frequency. So, being that the PlayStation can run 10 degrees cooler, it can actually perform better when it needs to because it can have higher boost clocks now.
And in terms of like PlayStation being shady, I mean, they definitely it does put them kind of in a little bit of a bad light because in terms of um the
Well, now they're
so
relying on people like us explaining this.
yeah,
When if they were just like Xbox and explained it themselves, you wouldn't have to worry about it.
yeah,
But now
and
there's people listening to Austin or there's people listening to Hardware Busters. And it's just like, does it suck or does it not? Because
yeah,
right now it's at a 50-50.
and
Because
part of
somebody
oh,
can look at that hardware buster and be like, "Oh, he's just a PlayStation fanboy. He's just trying to make PlayStation look good." You know, it's like so many different layers to it.
yeah,
Well,
and when they were another thing that kind of like made PlayStation already look shady was like when Fortnite was suing Apple. What had came out was that in terms of like crossplay and stuff like that, PlayStation's the only one that requires a payment to enable crossplay. So, but if as soon as let's say Fortnite, the developers decide, okay, we're not going to pay, PlayStation anymore, like then they're like, nope, we don't want to give it to the game, the community, and that's kind of stupid. I think that's a horrible way to sort of market yourself out of.
yeah, I feel like any crossplay should be free for multiple reasons. Um, I can see why PlayStation wants you to pay for it because they're using that money for development. I mean, that's typically why people make you pay for certain services so they can develop them further. But the more people you get on crossplay, which means, let's say everyone wants to play Call of Duty. I mean, I know Call of Duty's already crossplay, but let's like, oh, I got a computer. Well, I got a Mac. I got a phone. I got an Xbox. Well, they still all go get the game because they can all play it. That's a lot more money that that game's making. Whereas other games are like, oh, it's not crossplay. Well, fucking, I'm not gonna get it. I mean, all my friends have different systems. I can't even play with them. It's pointless. So they
Well,
really need to push crossplay.
yeah, I think the issue with Sony for that in that aspect is Sony is a much smaller company compared to Microsoft, so they can kind of take the hit. I don't know what Sony's budget looks like. I don't know what their profits look like and such, because like yeah, they can send out like quarterly information, but it can be very misleading. So like
Yeah,
I don't know how they're
and that's a
doing.
big
So
thing to
maybe that's
consider
why.
too. Yeah, that's a big thing to consider too because Sony, they have their own servers, but they got to pay more to run them. Whereas Microsoft, between
Makes
computer and Xbox, I mean, they have way more infrastructure, way bigger servers, way more powerful. I mean, they're in terms of company size, Microsoft is way bigger than Sony.
well, and I'm pretty sure Sony pays Microsoft for the servers. Like,
I
I'm pretty
wouldn't
sure
doubt it.
Microsoft is the one that creates and runs the PlayStation servers. So it's like, I mean, maybe honestly, that could be something that I don't know if they have like a certain length deal or something. Maybe that's something that comes up next time it's done, and it's like, look, you either make crossplay like just a normal thing and don't make these companies pay more, or find somebody else to set you up some servers. You know?
It,
Yeah, and Sony's always been the company that they have to do it their way. They don't like listening to other people. They don't like working. I mean, I can't say they don't like working with other people, but they definitely would rather do it themselves. But if they opened up and said, you know, let's make exclusive titles cross-platform, the money revenue and everything would be like skyrocketed.
That kind of like reminds me of the subject, and we talked about this in season 2 so far. You guys go over to, I believe the episode was actually called Microsoft's Upswing. And it was actually about Microsoft making the big purchase of the company ZeniMax, of which owns Bethesda Studios, that makes video games. And one of the biggest and most prolific games that they own is the franchise Skyrim. So there has been recent news actually where there's a new Skyrim being developed, but the next Skyrim that is being developed will be exclusively on Xbox One. So I remember we were debating
Not
more or
even
less.
PC.
On PC, well,
I'm sure
Xbox is
probably
PC, yeah. So, there was that sort of discussion of, we were like, okay, well, what is Microsoft gonna do? And I kind of felt the smartest thing was like, okay, leave the game title open because you're gonna have that ability to just make more income, right? Just go after the money. But I guess now they're trying to make it exclusive to, I guess, bring more things, obviously, towards in terms of towards Xbox, in terms of like, okay,
Yeah.
maybe let me
Well,
purchase an Xbox or run the app on
you have to have
Xbox
your
streaming service.
exclusives because that's kind of like one of the tactics to say we have this game, come to our um platform, yet so you have to have that because that's part of the competition. But I feel like if you are going to make people pay for cross platform, then what if that payment includes, another license to play a certain game on another console? Like I feel like there could be a lot of things that are done differently to allow more people more access. But yeah, I mean, you can't not have exclusives because, like Sony with Spider-Man, and your exclusives like Xbox has Forza, and Sony has what's theirs, Gran Turismo.
Yeah.
Like that's just saying we have our racing game, they have their racing game.
Yeah,
No, so that just attracts people to a certain platform. It's just, why would you buy an iPhone over an Android kind of argument?
but
Because you can do this on this and this on this.
I was just gonna say, I think at the end of the day, I think what's the reason for the exclusives is I think Microsoft got bit in the butt last generation because they kind of relied on, just like with the 360, they relied on third party to want to exclusively release on Xbox. And the next, PlayStation started buying up studios like crazy. So Microsoft didn't have really any exclusives. So now they're like, oh, you want to get into this fight? Okay, I'm fine with it. We have way more capital. I'm just going to start buying up these studios, big studios. I mean, there's been rumors that 2K Games is potentially up for sale. We've
oh
been
wow,
talking about it for a few years now. Imagine Grand Theft Auto only being on Xbox. That's all I'm
yeah,
going to say.
you
Oh,
know,
And that's the
and
thing. If you want to argue with a company like Microsoft, they're the company that's just gonna be like, oh, you want to compete with us? Okay, let me buy you.
yeah, and with that said, in terms of exclusives, I'm gonna ask everyone else to exclusively only listen to the Amateur Hour podcast. We're gonna have to end it there just because we are possibly overtime actually today. But with that said, I mean, is some fairly interesting stuff, and I hope you guys enjoy the podcast. Thank you for always listening, coming back to the episode, every new episode that we have. Again, we're available on 4 platforms, so wherever you're listening to, we're on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe, hit that notification bell, and give the video a like, and please leave a comment down below. Xbox or PlayStation? It's a worldwide question of what makes it most. What side are you on? What do you choose? And
And all you PlayStation guys out there, calm down because it actually is a good upgrade.
yeah. So you take a chill pill, so to speak, or the red pill now that the new Matrix is coming out. So make sure you guys follow our sponsors. Be sure to check out the Grim Reaper over on Twitch.tv. He streams about 4 times out of the week, 6 to 11 p.m. CDT. So for you guys, please check him out. Again, all of his links are in the description down below, as well as if you're local to the Indiana Cedar Lake area, if I were you, I'd go down over to Kelly's Kernels. Again, there's 68 flavors of popcorn, including other tasty, lovely treats. So if you guys there, please go down, give us some support. Tell them we sent you. And with that said, as always,
We love you.
bye.